trying to show some respect, to say I'm sorry that this happened, and to honor her life and her father's life for trying to get her some, a better situation. And I feel embarrassed that our own government does not feel any remorse or guilt or sense of responsibility or accountability. So I just thought I'd come and just show some support.
Thank you. Gracias. ¿Alguien más que quiera hablar o decir algunas frases? Yo vine para estar en memoria de Jacqueline, una niñita de 7 años que no debería estar muerta, que debería estar viva y jugando. ¿Por qué estamos haciendo esto? Hay que parar esto. Estoy aquí para recordar a Jacqueline, a pesar de que no la conocí.
Okay, no, we're good. It's under
Maybe
my
you can
feet.
join me, guys, and we
between
can
my
sing
legs,
her a
it's good,
song.
it's good.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let her shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let her shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let her shine. Let her shine, let her shine, let her shine. This little soul of mine, I'm gonna let her shine. This little soul of mine, I'm gonna let her shine. This little soul of mine, I'm gonna let her shine. Let her shine, let her shine, let her shine. ¿Alguien más quiera decir algunas palabras? This is an open space for everybody.
I'm very glad that people are out here tonight. What an outrageous situation. What kind of system treats a 7-year-old this way? What kind of system is taking babies from their mother's arms and putting them in concentration camps? This is a totally illegitimate system, and we need a revolution, and along the way we need to get this fascist regime out of the White House that's perpetrating this. I join with everybody here, and we need many more protests like this. Thank you so much.
¿Alguien más que quiera compartir algo de por qué estamos aquí?
Buenas tardes. Lo que queremos es justicia para la niña que realmente se nos adelantó por culpa de la patrulla fronteriza. Estamos hartos de tanta discriminación hacia nuestra comunidad inmigrante. Trump, te digo una cosa, estos muertos que están aquí son tuyos, Trump, porque por tu culpa estamos padeciendo, por tu culpa nos discriminan mucho. Hay que parar todo esto ya. Si el pueblo se une, vamos a poder vencer todo esto, porque ya estamos cansados de lo mismo, de tanta discriminación, de tanta matadera. Pedimos por la niña Jocelyn justicia, que no se quede impune esto, y vamos a seguir luchando y peleando. Trump, estos muertos son tuyos.
Ahora quiero introducirles a la Immigration Affairs Commissioner, a Brita Mostafi.
Gracias, good evening. Thank you everyone for coming out tonight, and I'm sorry it's under these circumstances that we gather together. You know, I'm Bita Mustofi. I'm the Commissioner for the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, and it has been a very difficult time for so many in our communities, not only to bear witness to what we've seen in our city, which is overbroad, increased enforcement of our communities, families being separated. We learned across this country just a couple of days ago that a mother was being denied a visa because of the Muslim ban to come and visit her dying little boy in a hospital. And we also learned recently of the death, I have no words really to express, of Jaquim, a young 7-year-old girl from Guatemala who had come to the United States in seeking a better future, a brighter future, a safer future. And our response to those in need, our response to the most vulnerable in our communities and in our world under this federal administration has been nothing but disgraceful, nothing but racist, and intolerable for all of us. And I'm consistently humbled by the spirit of our communities, the resiliency of people coming together to share in the sorrow and the grief, but also to commit to fighting on behalf of all of these families and young people. I was honored to be able to travel to Dilley, Texas to speak with, meet, and represent young children and their mothers, who the majority of whom were coming here seeking asylum, and hearing their journeys and understanding the conditions in which they were being held while they were articulating the extreme violence and the experiences and trauma that they had experienced in their home countries and why they were coming here. And I think, you know, in so many ways, it was for me a reminder of the very tall mountain that we all must climb together to ensure that each and every person who needs safety, who's seeking asylum in our countries, every young person who might come in contact with our borders is treated with dignity and respect and the humanity that they deserve, and that we all work together to realize that for all of our communities. A loved one from a country that may be banned, or those right here. That as we head into a moment of celebration in this country where many families and friends love that we should all be exemplifying and valuing. Thank you so much.
Yes.
¿Alguien más que desea decir algunas palabras de por qué estamos aquí el día de hoy? Sé que está frío y de verdad de corazón les agradezco a todos por estar aquí presentes. La administración Trump ha estado cometiendo muchas cosas en contra de nuestras comunidades de color. And I want to ask Antonio to translate me. I get so nervous, I don't know why.
So the Trump administration has created a lot of crimes.
Nuestras comunidades están sufriendo, están siendo arrestados en los centros de detenciones.
Our communities are suffering. They're being detained at detention centers.
Las patrullas fronterizas están matando a nuestras gentes.
Border Patrol is killing our communities.
Y esa es la razón por la cual estamos aquí, demandando justicia no solamente por Jacqueline, sino por las cientos de personas que han estado falleciendo durante todos los años por el simple hecho de querer llegar a este país para mejorar sus vidas.
And that's why we're here today, to demand justice, not only for Jacqueline, but for the hundreds of people who has crossed the border in the search of a better future in this country.
So, vamos a tomarnos un momento de silencio y cuando terminemos vamos a apuntar a la parte de arriba, ¿ok?
So we're going to take a moment of silence, and at the end we're going to face the building that is behind you all right now.
Vamos a empezar. 1, 2, 3. ¿Quiénes son los culpables? Vamos a terminar esta, si no hay nadie más que quiera decir algunas palabras, vamos a terminar esto porque sé que está frío.
So if anyone, if anyone else wants to share, please come to the mic. If not, we're going to close. We know that it's very cold right now. Want to share?
Hi everybody, hola, gracias por escuchar. As an American, I just want to say to everybody here that's American, this is the holiday, it's time to be with your family, but it's a good time to talk with your family about what it means to be an immigrant. Maybe there's an immigrant in your family, maybe not somebody very close to you, but perhaps a great-grandfather or great-great-grandfather, so we should all think about this.
Yeah, so we just want to close, but I also want to share a little bit, right? I am an immigrant. I came when I was 10 years old, so I can imagine what it meant for Jacqueline to cross the border. I did cross the border with my parents. I didn't know where I was coming to this country. Eventually, I talked to my parents, and they were like, well, we wanted a better future for you and for your brother. But at the time, I was just walking. I didn't know the risk of coming to this country. I didn't know that I was going to face discrimination in this country. But I'm grateful because my parents did the best that they could for me to be in this country. And thanks to them, I am a college graduate today. I can't imagine what the mother of Jacqueline is going through right now. She's going to see probably the body of her dead kid coming to Guatemala in a few days. Imagine having to bury your kid during these holidays. As Americans, as people who care about humanity, we need to make sure that we continue to fight for justice, not only for Jacqueline, as we mentioned, but there was a baby, an 18-year-old, who died in a detention center. That's not what the U.S. is representing, right? This is not the values that we want to share with the world. We want to make sure that we fight for justice, and no one next year, who knows, in the next weeks, that no one has to go through the same pain that the mother of Jacqueline is going through. So from the bottom of our hearts, we want to thank you all for coming out in the very cold weather, on a very cold day and night. And then you have something to say?
So, voy a repetir los nombres de las personas que tenemos aquí y ustedes dicen presente, ¿ok?
So we're gonna repeat the names and then you say presente.
Jacqueline Ami.
Presente!
Claudia Gómez.
Presente!
Roxana Hernández.
Presente!
Mary Juárez.
Presente!
Jacqueline Ami.
Presente!
Claudia Gómez.
Presente!
Roxana Hernández.
Presente!
Mary Juárez.
Presente!
Aquí estamos y no nos vamos. Y si nos echan, nos regresamos. Aquí estamos y no nos vamos. Y si nos echan, nos regresamos. Gracias.
Thank you. Que te llega tarde y me... Pretty much. Yeah. Should I ask? Yes. Well, I have to reach. I have to reach up for my bag, which is under the arm. But I can try.
Would you like a paper though?
No, okay.
Okay.
Thank you. No, I get the email.
Okay, great. It's like a Revolution newspaper.
Are we done? Albert. Albert. No.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Would you like a Revolution paper, Spanish or English?
Just let me finish the.
Okay.
Sí, hay otros casos, como lo mencioné, Roxana Hernández, una mujer trans de Honduras que falleció este año también porque no le dieron el tratamiento que ella necesitaba.
From San Antonio, Texas, and chair this next term of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. And the Congressional Hispanic Caucus is leading tomorrow a CODEL or official delegation to investigate the circumstances and conditions surrounding the death of a 7-year-old girl, Jacqueline, at the Lordsburg Station in New Mexico. We had a chance this evening to meet with some of the migration advocates and experts who work in this area, both in El Paso and New Mexico, and also to speak to attorneys for Jacqueline's dad. Before I give some more remarks, I want to acknowledge each of the members that are here with me. The first one, of course, is Veronica Escobar, who's Congresswoman-elect for El Paso, Raul Ruiz from Southern California, Sylvia Garcia, Congresswoman-elect from Houston, and Ben Ray Lujan, who's Assistant Democratic Leader and Congressman from New Mexico. We have asked for a congressional investigation into the conditions and circumstances surrounding this young girl's death. We, of course, join also in the request for an Office of Inspector General investigation. There's still a lot of unanswered questions that are very important. I hope that we'll have a chance to get some of those answers tomorrow, although I'm very disappointed that so far the Commissioner will not make available the agents who were directly involved in handling Jacqueline and her father. We hope that by tomorrow afternoon, perhaps they'll reconsider that. We're also, of course, very concerned, as others are, that CBP did not notify Congress within 24 hours of the death of someone in their custody, which is required by federal law, and that there are certain policies and practices that clearly need to be changed, and that it looks like CBP has acknowledged need to be changed. Very specifically, for example, the fact that during that 94-mile bus ride, there wasn't a single person who was a medical personnel that was available once the young girl's symptoms became apparent to treat her while she was on the bus. So she had nobody that had medical training, a nurse or a doctor that was available to her to keep her alive. Those are among the most important questions that we have. As you can imagine, we have many others. None of us has had a chance to talk to her father. We inquired a few days ago. The embassy said that he was too distraught. He wasn't speaking with anyone, which I'm sure I know everybody understands. With that, we'll take some questions.
We're live right now on Facebook for act.tv.
Yeah, we're here today because we want to demand justice for Jacqueline, one of a member of our community, an immigrant community, who died at a detention center. We know that this is not the first time that it happens, right? We know that a baby of 18 months died at a detention center. Our sister from Honduras died at an age of 33. So this is something that has been happening over the years. So we want to make sure that there's investigations and there's justice for the people who died at these detention centers.
Do you expect things to change anytime soon?
We expect, right, but at the end of the day, we're living in an administration that doesn't care about human rights. But we know that there's organizations, amazing organizations, doing the work at the border and making sure that we fight for the justice and the respect for those immigrants.
Thank you.
No problem.
En primera, que el Congreso nos siga ofreciendo más dinero para que esta patrulla fronteriza siga trabajando. No queremos más migración.
Let me know. We're down.
En primera, tuvieron 90 minutos para ellos darle agua o oxígeno o lo que sea y no lo hicieron. ¿Por qué? Porque no está.
Oh wow. So maybe we shouldn't stop. Okay. So mic off.
Squad here from El Paso, and then the other members will have comments.
Thank you, Congressman. Congressional Hispanic Caucus take a lead role in so much of what is occurring here on the U.S.-Mexico border, and I'm very grateful to my future colleagues for their interest, their compassion, and their desire to get to the bottom of all of this. I also want to recognize Bob Moore who wrote the piece for the Washington Post, and Nick Miroff. Without your story, Jacqueline's story may never have been made known to members of Congress or to the American people. And so the work that you all are doing is really critical to those of us who want to ensure that we are a compassionate nation. Tonight, my future colleagues were able to hear from local advocates, attorneys, human rights activists who've been working on the U.S.-Mexico border for decades. And they got a very good big picture view of what we in El Paso and those of us on the U.S.-Mexico border have been dealing with for many, many years, but which has been escalated over the last couple of years. They learned about the way that our government is making it far more difficult for refugees to legally, lawfully seek asylum in our country, to exercise their right to request asylum protection from the United States. And these families are instead being driven to far more treacherous crossings. And we have a hand as a country in what is occurring on the other side of that border. And so I was grateful also for the local advocates and activists and attorneys who spent time helping paint that bigger picture that Americans need to know about so that we can understand how we got to this point where a 7-year-old girl died in our custody.
Congressman Reese.
Excellent. My name is Raul Reese. I'm a physician, emergency medicine, board certified trained physician. I'm also the chair of the CHC Health Task Force, and I'm here focusing on the health care capacity once an immigrant or asylum seeker is in our custody, and the health care, mental as well as physical health care that they receive. There's a lot of questions, a lot of concerns. It is very difficult for me as a professional to think that a 7-year-old child went from normal to a seizure within 8 hours and died soon afterwards. And so there must have been some signs and symptoms during that care once that she was under our custody that should have alerted us to, or the CBP to get more care. And those are the questions that I have. What are the capacity that the Border Patrol, Department of Homeland Security has in caring for these individuals? Yo soy el doctor Raúl Ruiz, hablo español, soy un médico de emergencia y también soy el director de del Comité de Salud dentro del Comité del Caucus de Hispanos en el Congreso, y estoy investigando el cuidado de salud a los niños y a los inmigrantes que están buscando auxilio en este país, porque fue una tragedia que una niña de 7 años murió adentro del cuidado del sistema de inmigración, y es algo como médico dentro de un hospital. Cuando un niño muere, nosotros tomamos pausa para preguntar por qué murió, qué podíamos hacer diferente para evitar la muerte y en qué podemos aprender de esta situación para prevenir otra persona, otro niño de morir. So, and I just mentioned in Spanish, the approach I take as an emergency physician once there's a death in the emergency department is emergency personnel pause and they debrief and they ask the questions. What caused the death? What could we have done differently to have prevented her death? And what could we have learned from this experience to prevent future deaths? And so I think that's the medical approach that we're also taking here to ensure that this doesn't happen again.
I'm Sylvia Garcia, and I'm from Houston, and I'm pleased to be here with my colleagues joining in this. And I think for many of us, what's going to be key is that we have a full, complete, independent investigation. An investigation that will look at everything from top to bottom and leave no stone unturned to make sure that a tragedy like this doesn't ever occur again. First, find out how did this happen, who did what, who didn't do what, and make sure that we resolve that through regulation, through law, through better guidelines, better protocols, to make sure that it doesn't ever happen again. No family should be put through this kind of tragedy. It's a tragedy that could have been avoided, in my judgment. We're here to learn more. We're going to look at all sides and make sure that we get to the bottom of it.
My name is Ben Ray Lujan from the 3rd Congressional District of New Mexico. And I too want to recognize the leadership of our chairman, Joaquin Castro, Veronica Escobar, for having us in her district today. I want to emphasize what's already been said, the importance of an independent investigation. This cannot be left up to the Department of Homeland Security Office of Inspector General. It's also incumbent upon Congress to fully investigate the death of Jacqueline. We're here because we're bringing attention to this issue. I think it's incumbent upon members of Congress to continue to visit not just border communities, but with everything that is occurring with separation of children. This is not stopped. And that's why you see not just the members that are here today, but many others that will be joining us tomorrow on this important CODEL as well.
And before we take questions, just a little bit more. We'll have about 13 members and members-elect of Congress tomorrow. And we, of course, are investigating the death of Jacqueline, this particular case, but also want to make sure that where law needs to be changed, we can change it. As Sylvia mentioned, where regulation needs to be changed, we can change that. And that we change these things so that we don't have more people who suffer the same fate. And so that's a big part of our mission in being here today. As Ben Ray mentioned, and I mentioned earlier, we are calling for a congressional investigation into this incident. As you recall, there was also, earlier in the year, I believe, the case of Marie, who was a young girl who spent time in federal custody. After she left, she then passed away also. That should also be part of an investigation. With that, we'll take some questions. Yes?
Can you guys talk a little bit more about what your investigation tomorrow will consist of? How do you plan to investigate? What are you going to see? What do you think you're going to be able to pick up just by short visits to these two sites?
Well, we've got basically the top brass of CBP. We had a briefing earlier in the day on policies and practices that pertain to this particular situation. So we're going to be asking a lot of policy questions as it pertains to the second mission, which is making sure that if there are things that need to change, and we believe there are, that we can help change them. We're also going to be meeting with the supervisors who were supervising the agents that handled this case on that.
It's moving.
Spirit company. That one? The other one. Yes. Yeah, I don't know. Wait, I just show up and see. But they were, yesterday for Tracy. She had the court, the one that climbed up on the Statue of Liberty. Yeah, she got convicted.
Can you see my shot shaking? Or is it just me?
They hit her with like terrorists. She got sentenced in March.
Significantly over the last 15 years. What we have not seen has been growth in accountability and transparency, and that has been the frustrating part for those of us on the ground, is as this federal law enforcement arm has continued to expand over time, there's been little or no recourse for civilian interaction. There's been no consequences, and so that's really where a lot of the reform can and should take place.
Congressman Ruiz, the administration's response to this has been essentially, it's not our fault. We tell people this is a dangerous journey, don't come. With what happened with Jacqueline, Shovel certainly was ill before she came to the border. Does the fact that she was ill coming into the country mitigate any responsibility on behalf of CBP? So especially as a healthcare professional, what's your view on the responsibility?
Beforehand, once a child had a fever of 105.7 degrees Fahrenheit, were other vital signs taken? What was the pulse, the heart rate, and all those other things? And then why did it take so long for them to be evacuated with medical transport via helicopter to the other facility? So these are all the medical questions that we need to ask, and I think it's important that we have independent investigators with healthcare professionals to be able to ask these questions and assess this. Again, we have to take the approach that we take in the emergency departments. What caused the death? What could we have done differently to prevent the child from dying? And what can we learn from this experience so that we can prevent future case scenarios like this?
Any other questions, y'all?
I have two questions. One, so she was separated from her father. Do we know why she was separated from her father? And then the second question is, the statement that the family put out contradicts the statement that the administration put out.
What's the contradiction as far as?
The family said that she was fed and that she did get water.
Right. And I have not seen whether CBP has corrected their first statement. I don't know whether they have. If they have, I missed it. You're right. Her attorneys have said that it was false to say that she had not had water on the journey, on the trip, or had not been fed. There's obviously a conflict of facts there, so we need to get to the bottom of that. And the separation part, I believe that she and her father were put together on the bus. They were on the bus together. Which period were you talking about in terms of separation?
I heard that she had passed away at a point where she was.
He was taken to the hospital after her, and from what I read, at least, they're claiming that there was not room on that medevac helicopter for the father to accompany her. We'll certainly be asking about that tomorrow.
Is there anything that the general population can do to make sure that this investigation happens? Is there anything that people who are, watching, what can everyday people do?
I think that people should speak up and let their elected officials know, Republican or Democrat, from all over the country, that they care about this child's life and they care about these issues, particularly as we move into a new Congress.
Thank you.
One more.